I was told that John wants 6 months to prepare if the fight is locked in.
That's
And what's
crazy.
6 months from now? September? Now I'm sure, money talks, but it
Drama.
feels like it feels like the summer, the if that is the goal, it's starting to slip away a little bit.
So, John Jones needs 6 months to train after the fight is signed and official. And
That's absolutely insane. I think that Tom Aspinall might be the longest interim title holder ever at that point. I think that right now that record is currently being held by Tony Ferguson. But if this fight does get signed soon, and if John Jones does actually need 6 months, which is absolutely insane, to train for Tom Aspinall, I think by the time he does fight Tom might actually be the longest ever reigning interim title holder in UFC history. That's absolutely insane.
in order to fight Tom Aspinall, meaning that the fight, even if it was signed right now, could not happen until September. And the fight hasn't been signed yet. So who knows when John Jones is going to accept the fight, and whenever he does, then he needs another half a year to train for Tom Aspinall before he actually fights him. So it could be by the end of the year, it could be next year, it could be, he could have already signed it. But we have no idea when John Jones is going to accept the Tom Aspinall fight. And the more time passes, the more it seems like the fight is not going to happen. And
I honestly do think that this fight has the possibility of not happening because we did see that interview that I did make a video about a couple days ago where John Jones specifically said that he would rather fight Alex Pereira over Tom Aspinall. And if Tom Aspinall really wants that belt, John Jones said that he's willing to vacate that title so that Tom Aspinall could fight somebody else so that he could become the undisputed heavyweight champion, which is just insane ducking in my opinion.
And with this new condition, I guess, it's like he's acting as if he didn't know he was going to fight Tom Aspinall. When Tom Aspinall's been the interim champion for a year and a half, right? Since November
I mean, let's be honest, he was hoping for the Alex Pereira fight, but of course, Big Ank came through and absolutely destroyed Alex Pereira.
of 2023. And Jones's last fight was a year after that, November of 2024. So at the very least, he knew that he was going to fight Tom Aspinall since 5 months ago. So what does the 6 month training camp even mean? And it's excessive, right? Nobody trains for 6 months to fight somebody,
It's
especially
mental.
the champion getting ready for the number one contender.
I think that it's like a mental game on Tom Aspinall, to be honest.
Right? The champion needs half a year to prepare himself for the number one contender, not the number one contender training for the champion, right? All Tom needs is a regular 2 month training camp to fight him, and that's it. And it's such an excessive training camp, it raises the risks of injuries. He can overtrain, get injured off of that. Most fighters' injuries come from training camps, and there's always like this stress or anxiety of having the opponent on their mind throughout their training camp. And imagine that's onward for half a year, right? And we know John Jones likes to party too, right? He's partied during training camps before. I can't imagine he goes half a year without drinking or partying or whatever it is. And there is a difference between a training camp and just training, right? Just training is going to the gym, learning some skills, going through some conditioning workouts and stuff like that, right? Maybe
I mean, well, yeah, that's facts because let's not forget whenever he was trying to fight not Tom Aspinall, Stipe Miocic last year, John Jones suffered an injury. He got like a pec tear, and then the fight was scheduled like literally 6 to 7 months later, which is absolutely insane. So yeah, there is a big possibility here that John Jones just gets injured, during training camp, which is I don't know. This is just a big theory to me, but this is just pointing towards more the direction that if John Jones does get injured during a training camp, he's 100% without a doubt gonna vacate the heavyweight title.
once a day, 5 days a week, something like that. Training camp, you're training multiple times a day, intense workouts. Your coach is working on a game plan and getting you to drill techniques to perfection specifically for the opponent. It's very strenuous on the body and on the mind. Imagine going through all of that for 6 months. That doesn't seem logical. I don't think Jones would actually do that. And the thing is, Jones is not stupid, right? Jones has the highest fight IQ out of any fighter we've ever seen. He understands a training camp that long doesn't make sense. So I don't quite understand why he wants.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. This is all just a power move. This is just to say that I have complete control over what happens in the UFC. This is just a power move. People that don't understand this from the negotiating perspective, just don't understand that there is a definite, dynamic here that's important that we need to absolutely address. And that's that John Jones right here is in the power seat because he controls whether or not Tom Aspinall does get that title fight, and he gets to say when that fight will happen. This is just a classic power move from a narcissistic kind of person, it really is. Because if John Jones really, I do think that he is confident facing someone like Tom Aspinall. He just doesn't want to do it on Tom Aspinall's term. He wants to do it on his terms, and he's 100% going to control each and every single aspect about the fight. When he gets that fight, when he gets the opportunity to give, Tom Aspinall that fight, and pretty much when he gets to sign the contract for that fight. This is all just power move things from Jon Jones.
To do that. Like, why is that part of the conditions? Could it be a convenient injury during that long training camp? But can this also be a negotiation tactic? Maybe to get more money from the UFC. He's probably telling them.
It is probably, well, let's talk about that very briefly. I think if this fight does get announced soon, Jon Jones would probably already have a big paycheck coming his way. It would just be control. I don't even think that it would be a negotiation tactic. It would be more of like Jedi mind tricks type shit, like psyops, 100%.
That he will fight Tom for that amount of money, but then he needs 6 months to train. But he was short in the training camp for more money. I mean, this fight is so big for the UFC. It's so big for all the fans. Everybody wants to see it. And Jon Jones could be using this as leverage for himself, because if he lengthens the time it takes to fight Tom, it also hurts the UFC too, right? Because the UFC needs these fights. They need these big fights already, because there's a report that they might be going to Netflix, which means they need the biggest fights possible in order to get the best deal with Netflix. And if Jones is delaying this big fight, which is arguably the biggest fight the UFC can possibly put on right now, as a way to gain leverage, knowing that the UFC might be leaving ESPN, it's smart on his part, but at the same time, it's not good for anyone but him. It's not good for the sport. It's not good for the UFC. It's not good for the fans.
It's a narcissistic move. I mean, let's not forget, this is fucking Jon Jones.
I mean, we want to see this fight already. And as for Tom Aspinall, they've been hanging this guy on the shelves since July of 2024. This man has not fought since then. And he's been wanting to fight, right? He wants to unify the belts, right? Tom is the guy who's going to continue the division forward. He's going to be the star of the heavyweight division. If anything, like for business, the UFC should be catering to their future star, not the star that's about to retire. And the UFC needs stars.
I think that because it is Jon Jones, this has the possibility of it being the biggest fight of the year and one of the biggest fights in UFC history. I think that Tom Aspinall makes the UFC money, but nowhere near enough money, cumulatively, per se, to say that any fight that Tom Aspinall has from this point of his career is going to absolutely outsell the possibilities of Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. I mean, let's just be honest.
Stars. Like, they need big names in their organization. They don't have many of them. Big Unk defeated Alex Pereira, which threw away the plans of Jon Jones wanting to fight Alex instead of Tom, narrowing that road on one opponent now. There's really nobody else for Jon Jones to fight if he wants to continue to fight. Tom Aspinall has been wanting to fight ever since last year. He's in his prime. He's getting better with every fight, and they're hanging him to dry. Because who else does he have to fight? There's Ciryl Gane, okay? Sure, defend your interim belt for the second time while the undisputed champion could just sit back and do whatever he wants. Now he needs half a year to train for Tom. If Jon Jones needs half a year to train for somebody, he's not ready for them. Imagine the negotiations get pushed until like August, October, December, something, And then he needs another half year to train after that. Tom, just move on. Just move on. He's not fighting you. Fight Ciryl Gane, defend your belt again. It's a wrap. I've never heard a fighter that doesn't want to fight the number one contender like this, and at the same time needs half a year to train for them. This is just wasting Tom Aspinall's time. It's like Michael Chandler waiting for Conor at this point. Jones will fight Stipe.
No,
he wants to fight Alex Pereira.
Not.
He'll fight other guys.
No, I don't think it's like Conor waiting. I don't think it's like Michael Chandler waiting on Conor. Conor is never, ever coming back. At least we have the possibility of seeing Jon Jones still compete in the UFC, because at least he is still signed to them and he is still, quote unquote, the active champion. So it's not the same thing. Let's be real.
But he doesn't want to fight Tom. Do you know who needs 6 months to train? It's like if Grant Dawson tried to fight Islam Makhachev. Yeah, then maybe he needs that long to train. But for Jon Jones, he is the king of the division, right? He needs to train that long for the number one contender, not the other way. How does that make any sense?
Move.
The champion needs more time to get ready for the number one contender than the number one contender needs to get ready for the champion. Who's more ready for who in that fight? It's Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall's been wanting to fight him already. Like,
it's not about who's more ready for who. It's just about Jon Jones just doing things in his fucking way because he's just a fucking asshole like that.
Maybe Tom Aspinall was right. He will retire Jon Jones without even fighting him.
Since I won that fight, he's gone completely quiet, and he'll continue to go completely quiet about me until he retires, because there's no way on earth that he's going to fight me. Not a chance. I will retire John Jones without even fighting him.
I want to fight more than anybody. I've been training non-stop. I've been so consistent. When the time comes, it's going to be something special. So remember what I said quite a while ago now. I will retire John Jones without even fighting him. That's something that I said. John, let's do it. If you want to do it, you don't have to ask me twice. If not, I'll fight somebody else for the undisputed belt. Happy to fight anybody, anytime, any.
So right here in this video was pretty interesting because Tom Aspinall was pretty much telling John Jones to vacate his title without literally saying.
Where doesn't matter. I'm ready to go.
That comes straight from the Art of War. That's Sun Tzu's philosophy of how to win a battle without even fighting. We've talked about this John Jones and Tom Aspinall thing for a long time, and it gets more ridiculous over time. Like, now Jones needs to train for him for half a year. Like, that's only after the fight is signed. It didn't seem like he was injured when he fought Stipe. That still has nothing to do with him having a 6-month training camp where there's a higher risk of injuries. Right, training camps are very hard. You train multiple times a day. Now, it would be the biggest fight of his entire career in terms of the opponent's skills and attributes. Tom Aspinall is the most dangerous fight in John Jones' entire career by far. It's a fighter who's bigger than him, faster than him, more athletic than him in his prime, can wrestle, can strike, has one-punch knockout power, the shortest average fight time in UFC history. Tom Aspinall is statistically the most dangerous fighter in the UFC. That is Jones' next opponent. So I understand that he needs to get prepared for him, right? He needs to train the most intelligent way possible because this is his most difficult fight. But 6 months seems too much. Like, nobody trains for a specific opponent for that long because at that point, there's a risk of diminishing returns with injuries and you can get sick during the training camp with all the stress, which can also throw Jones into more partying, right? There's nothing wrong with partying, but you don't want to do that during training camp, of course, which is something that Jones does, right? He said he's party during training.
That's terrible freaking form on those tricep extensions. But anyways, I just don't think that people are just gonna fall for the John Jones needs a 6 months training camp. That's not what's happening here, ladies and gentlemen. I think for anybody out there that understands like how a person John Jones operates and like the type of mentality that they have, it's not that they want a 6 month training camp. That's not what John Jones wants. He is literally saying that, okay, Tom Aspinall, you want to fight? Okay, bet. I'm going to tell you when I sign this fight, and I'm going to tell you when we fight. And we're going to fight on my terms. That's what John Jones is saying. It's not that he wants to prepare the 6 months. I mean, that's just not the truth. John Jones, obviously, really good. Still really good. Super elite level decision making. I think that he's, like I said, one of the smartest, or like Weasel said, like one of the highest IQs ever in combat sports, period. Especially in the sport of MMA, where positioning is like the most important thing. Super smart southpaw. Great offensive and defensive schemes from the wrestling and offensive striking perspective. He doesn't need a 6 months training camp. This is just a power move. This is just like a narcissistic type decision that John Jones is doing. And I'm pretty sure that people are going to realize that as the time goes by, that John Jones was never doing a 6 months training camp. He was just doing this to pretty much get on Tom Aspinall's nerves. Pretty much.
Training camp before. Now imagine half a year without partying, and at this point, I mean, I already thought that this fight wasn't going to happen, but now it seems less likely that the fight's going to happen. With new stipulations with the John Jones fight, then what's Tom going to be doing during that? Tom's going to be waiting, 4 months from when the fight is signed and then go into training camp for the last 2 months, which is a normal training camp. The length of a training camp that most fighters need is like 2 months. Tom doesn't need half a year to train for anybody. It's going to be probably a year and a half since Tom Aspinall's last fight, and that's only if the fight gets signed first. The training camp stuff is not even the hardest part. It's getting John Jones to sign the fight. That is the hardest part for Dana, for Tom, for the fans. That's what everyone is waiting for, is Jones to accept the fight. Either way, it doesn't seem like the fight's going to happen unless Dana does give him the money he's asking for. Every fighter will fight depending on the money. So we'll see if John Jones accepts the fight, and if it does get announced, it'll be a massive fight, huge for the UFC, huge for all the fans. But if not, it is what it is. And
my prediction still stands clear. I think that John Jones is more likely to vacate the title. He has only 2 options. There's only 2 options left in his career moving forward. He either vacates the title and retires, or he fights Tom Aspinall. There's literally nothing else for John Jones to do. My honest opinion, I think that John Jones is more likely to vacate the title than to fight Tom Aspinall. I think that the likelihood of us seeing Tom Aspinall ever face off against John Jones ever getting to a press conference, ever getting to a weigh off, ever getting to a fucking face off, ladies and gentlemen, is freaking low. I honestly do think that Jon Jones is ducking Tom Aspinall, and he's going to go ahead and vacate the title and retire before we ever see him compete against Tom Aspinall.